Hey, I'm Brian.
I'm Kaylene.
And this is our veggie patch. Welcome. Now we're up to episode 5 now, and I thought it'd be good to kind of go back to where we started,
yes.
which is the seedlings, because I see a lot of people in the Aussie Gardener Facebook group. If you haven't joined that, by the way, it's going great guns. There's so many good posts, and people are being helped.
You learn heaps.
It's been fantastic.
Even I learned some.
We're learning some things as well, because there's some plants that we haven't grown before that we're hearing about, and so we're hearing little tricks and tips as well from
so thank you to everyone.
Yes, thank you. So what we're going to talk about today is looking at your seedlings, how they're going, how to solve problems, when you should be planting them out into your beds, how to prepare the beds, all those kind of things, because that's the questions I'm seeing coming up quite a lot in the group. So we're going to tackle that today. Now, some people have been using or a lot of people I should say, have been using the Aussie Gardener little propagation kits like this one here. And they've got their seedlings growing in here, and that's going well. And other people have just done their own thing using egg cartons and other trays and whatever, which is totally fine. Okay, so with this kit, we sell this because we know it'll make the job a lot easier. Is the main thing, because you're creating a really nice environment for them to start their life in. Someone asked me, look, why don't we just grow the seeds straight into the beds? And so some varieties you can. So for example, like peas and beans, which sprout really easily and grow very fast, you could grow those straight in your actual beds. And certainly things like carrots. Carrots are best if you plant the seeds straight into the beds, because otherwise you end up with all wonky looking carrots and bends and things, okay? Rather than getting punnets or growing them in seed trays. But for a lot of the other seeds, they're very small seeds, and it works better to grow them in something like this or in your trays as well. Now, while we're on that topic, because we're growing all these seeds, we're growing all these plants, and you're going to be growing more. All right, so you're going to be putting these in the ground, and then you're going to start growing more. So it's important that you practice hygiene with any trays that you are using. So with these plastic trays, you're going to need to treat them after you finish growing these seedlings. And the way to do that is to use some bleach and water in a bucket and just soak it in there. Probably soak it in there for an hour or so, just to clean off any germs that are in the trays, so that the new seedlings grow very healthy as well. I recommend that you don't reuse soil as well. If you've got any soil left over that's been in the trays and seedlings before, don't use it again for seedlings. It carries too many risks. You'll have too many problems with germination and disease and things. Best to put that used soil into your compost bin and let it go through that composting process, and then you can add it to your beds as well. Because what does compost do? It kills off the bad pathogens, because the compost heap gets to a temperature that's hot enough to do that. So that's why we go through that process. Now, in our little propagator here, we've grown a lot of onions. Now, for a lot of you, you've grown all different varieties of things, because that's what we taught in the first video. But for us,
so you can get an idea of what different plants do, and and get more variety.
You learn as well.
Us, we've got plenty already in the ground, so we needed lots of onion.
That's correct.
We're out of onions.
So we knew that our bed that we wanted to plant next was going to be onion, and we need lots of onions. And so that's why we use the tray mainly for growing onions. Now, are these plants big enough to actually plant out? They are pretty small at the moment, if we have a look at them here. Now these onions, they're actually big enough to plant out. They'll be okay. We've got some spinach over here. They're looking a bit spindly at the moment, so no, they need some more TLC in there. The beetroot, it's starting to come along. If we have a look at the kale here, if you can just hold on to that. These are little kale seedlings here. And the main thing I'm looking at, now the leaves aren't very significant on these. By the way, these are your first leaves. See these little roundy kind of heart-shaped ones? They're kind of ones that come up straight out of the seed. They're not your proper leaves. These are your proper leaves, these little tiny ones here with the little jagged edges on your kale. So you need to have those ones coming out. So the most important thing we're looking for is actually the roots. So the leaves are good.
Once the leaves have started to get the more adult leaves,
Yeah, once you've got adult leaves and then it's been growing for long enough,
Yeah.
it has strong enough roots, that's when we can do the transplanting. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to squeeze the bottom here of the tray just very gently from either side to loosen the soil. And then I'm going to pull on this plant and it should come out as one group like that. And if we have a look at this, we can see there's lots of beautiful roots growing all around there. So that plant is actually ready to plant out into the garden. Even though it doesn't have very significant leaves yet, it's ready to plant out as long as we protect it there.
Yes.
So that one's ready to go. So we'll do that one a bit later as well. But we're going to do onions. Just as a comparison, I went to a local nursery and just bought a punnet of onions just to kind of show you the difference. So these ones here, a little bit more leaf growth on here. So they're probably another week or so older than the ones I've got here. If we then tip them out, we can see we've got good established roots going down the bottom. But in order to plant these out, we're still going to have to break them up to plant them individually. So we're going to do that process and we're going to use this bed here as our onion bed, because in this bed before we've grown fruiting vegetables. The one that was growing here before,
Zucchini,
you remember, was zucchini.
Yeah.
That's right. So if you remember our crop rotation, if you haven't watched episode 4, please do watch that because it explains that whole process. So we've grown a fruiting vegetable before in this bed, and now we're going to a root vegetable, because root vegetables need hardly any nitrogen, and so the nitrogen would have mostly been used up in this bed, and so the root vegetables will be happy in there. People have been asking, what if I'm starting from scratch though and I want to plant onions straight away? Can I do that? Now of course you can.
Yeah.
What'll end up happening is you'll probably find that you'll get lots of leaves, and the onions the first year will maybe be a bit small, but over time you'll be able to go into that cycle of first planting the nitrogen adding, which was, remember, the green manure, how we ploughed that in, the composting, adding manure, and you can also grow peas and beans because they magically add nitrogen to the soil. So that's our step 1. Our step 2 was people that love nitrogen. We don't love nitrogen. Plants that love nitrogen, and that's things with big leaves. So spinach and kale and broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage and all those things love lots of nitrogen. Group 3 is things that are fruiting. So anything that has a fruit that hangs off the plant. So that could be a capsicum or a tomato or a zucchini or an eggplant. They're all summer vegetables, and at the moment we're in autumn, so they are not growing at the moment. But in summer you would have fruiting vegetables, and then we go into the root vegetables, which is of course carrots and beetroot, onions, all those things. They're all root vegetables and they don't need much nitrogen. So that's what we're planting today. But we need to get this bed ready. So what we're going to do, just put that to the side there, is we're going to dig over this bed. We're going to add some compost to it. We're not going to add any manure. Why wouldn't we add any manure?
Because we don't want the nitrogen.
We don't want the nitrogen, that's right. So when you're rejuvenating a bed...
Would compost add nitrogen?
Not really, because a lot of it's broken down in... Because when something breaks down in compost, it absorbs nitrogen. So in order to actually break down compost, that's why it's good to have manure in there, because manure adds nitrogen, the compost sucks the nitrogen up, and that's how it goes through the breakdown process. And so compost generally won't have too much nitrogen in it, which is why you would generally add manure if you were refreshing a bed ready for the start of that sequence.
Yep.
But we're not doing that. We're on the 4th step of the crop rotation, which is root vegetables, so we don't need the nitrogen. So all we're going to do is dig this over and add some compost to it. So Kaylene's going to use the power planter. She's using the 30 centimetre long power planter this time, the 312 model. And let's have a look at the drill settings you've got there. So what have we got?
Got it on the slower setting, number 1.
Slower setting, so this is the speed, this setting up the top here. Okay, so we put it on number 1.
Yep.
And then what have we got on the dial here?
We've got it on 11 at the moment.
11. And so what this is the clutch of the actual drill. And what it does, we'll just demonstrate this. So if I put it on number 1 and I try to dig on number 1, it'll stop as soon as I hit the soil. There we go. See how it stopped, and that's the clutch. And what it's doing is it's deactivating the motor so that I get no twisting in my wrists. So obviously if we want to dig, we can't have it on number 1 because it's not going to be strong enough to dig the ground. So we turn it up to a higher number. So let's put it up to number 7 and then we'll try. Put it into forward. Now this soil's relatively soft because I've been growing in it. I can use number 7 on this and be able to dig and get no twisting of my wrist, because if I hit a rock or something, it would stop the motor instantly. So that's a really important safety feature with using the power planters.
Yep.
If you want to see more details of that, go to the website powerplanter.com.au/go. There's actually a full training video on how to set it up so you don't get any jarring in your wrists.
So if we had hard soil, what would we set it up?
Well, probably 7 wouldn't be enough if the soil was hard. You'd probably need to switch it up to one of the highest numbers. Now you need to test and measure that to work it out, because each drill is different.
And how do you go about getting into hard soil?
That's right.
Without hurting yourself?
Well, just with the test and measure, I'll answer that first.
Okay, sorry.
Is that you would adjust it. So I would say you'd start on number 5, give it a go, see if you're able to control it well and you're able to do some digging, and then maybe put it up a notch and then dig. But then if you find it's starting to kind of twist your wrist just a little bit, then you probably back it off a little bit. Now, if you're going into hard ground, like hard clay, well, generally you don't want to be planting in hard clay, but let's say you wanted to dig a hole in clay, like for putting in a pergola or a deck or something like that, or a letterbox, then you would probably switch it up to a very high number, and then you'd have to be careful with it, and you have to use a dabbing action. So you don't just press down and go for broke, is that you press, you hit the soil, you dab, dab, dab,
so you
dab.
kind of push it in and pull it out.
That's right. Use a dabbing action to actually dig. All right, you can find that in the video that I mentioned before at the Go link. So we're going to dig over this bed. All right, and look, there's again another one of the worms. He's a bit startled, he's jumping around everywhere, but he's certainly in one piece and very happy, because the power planters, for some reason, don't seem to actually chop them up. I'm amazed, to be honest, but it doesn't seem to harm them. So we're going to put the worm back there, and we're going to add the compost in, remember?
Oh, sorry, forgot about that.
That's all right. Now, when Kaylene was digging that, there was remnants of roots from the previous crops in there. So the power planter does break all those up and makes it nice. So we're going to add this compost in. Now, the compost is the compost that we've made from our own bins, that it was explained in episode 4.
Okay.
All right, so if you just smooth that out.
Ready to plant.
Very good. You might
still got a remnants of a avocado. It hasn't broken down.
That's right.
They do break down, but obviously that one wasn't in long enough.
There we go.
Okay.
I've managed to find a few other things in our compost, like spoons, forks.
Or the plug from the sink.
They're plugged from the sink.
The grater.
Because when you're cooking, come down with me. When you're cooking, if we only have limited bench space, and so
we've got a very small
kitchen, and so we ended up putting accidentally the spoon into the bucket with the compost.
And I found the plug. I was wondering where the plug had gone for months. Found it.
It's in the compost.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll start with these ones here. I'm going to use this punnet first. We'll do that one second.
Okay,
So just put that over there. So the first thing we're going to be looking at is we need to go how far do we space these apart?
Yes.
All right. Now, if we've got a punnet, it's going to tell us on the back of the punnet here. And so it's telling us that they grow, 10 to 15 centimeters apart is what they're recommending on the back of here. So if you look in there, Now, if we're growing them from seed, obviously we won't have that label, so we need to go back to the seed packet. And I'm opening a pack of Aussie Gardener seeds. So this has all 20 of our seeds for growing in autumn and winter, all in one easy pack. Can you hold those? I'm going to find the right one just quickly. There we go, onion brown. I'm glad it wasn't number 19. There we go, put those back.
Definitely an onion brown one.
California onion.
red.
Well, it's similar. It's similar. Similar.
All right.
She's caught me out. So on the Aussie Gardener packets, I'll just explain. We've got up the top a little bit of a code system, and it tells us how far to space them apart and some other important information. So it's
they're
telling
abbreviations. I'm not good with abbreviations,
Okay.
so I understand all of you that go, what does that mean? I'm
All
the
right.
same.
So I've tried to make it clear though, because I've gone D,
Yep.
5 millimeters. So that's depth,
Depth. Okay.
5 millimeters. So we're
Yep.
going to plant it 5 millimeters deep. S for spacing is 5 centimeters apart.
Okay.
And then rows, each row is 25 centimeters apart.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what the R is for. And then I've added one more thing, which I think that all seed packets should have, or would make more sense, is it says H for harvesting, 160 days. So it's
That gives
telling
you a
us,
rough idea of when
it's
you're
telling us
going
if
to be
you
ready,
plant them now, they're going to be ready in about 160 days.
which is a lot.
That's a long time
They're a
because
long time for onions,
onions take a long time to actually grow,
but they're good. They're rewarding once they're all done.
and they do last for a while as well.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at the pack close up so you can just see. So you can see the codes there up in the top right. Got Jimmy holding the camera here. He's desperately trying to hold it very steady. Doing a great job.
That's our legendary 15-year-old
That's
son.
15-year-old. Very good. And we have our other son, because people have been asking about
Yeah.
our boys. So we have our other son who's a bit older than that.
Yeah, a wee bit.
He's a big adult, and his name's Ashley, and he's on the other camera as well.
Yeah.
So we might
Yep.
sneak them into a video
Okay.
one time.
26 now, aren't you?
26.
Yeah.
That makes us very old,
That's
doesn't it?
crazy.
Yeah. We must be getting
Anyhow,
old.
I love you both.
Yeah, we had him when we were 12.
No,
all
we
right.
did not.
All right. So our spacing, we've got to go 5 millimeters deep, space 5 centimeters apart, and rows at 25 centimeters.
Okay.
All right. So a little tip for you is it's a good idea to measure how
just
big
gonna
your
go
hand is.
get something.
So I know that my hand span is 25 centimeters wide. So if we just measure across from that, 25 centimeters, a full hand span, and so I can use that when I'm planting. And also when you're out places and you need to measure something, just use your hand. So measure a few key points in your body. Because you're a fully grown adult, you're not going to change, so measure from here to here and work out what it is. I think for mine it's 50 centimetres, which is very convenient.
It is.
25 and 50 centimetres for measuring. But of course you can also use a tape measure as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I found just using simple bamboo stakes. So
Bamboo
you can
stakes, that's right.
kind of go, okay, I'm planting there, and then you just plant, obviously not on it, but beside it.
Yeah, the other good thing about using the stakes is it means that if I come along,
Yeah.
I'm not going to dig this bed over because I can know that Kaylene's already planted it because there's stakes there
Yes.
laying on their sides.
Especially if we've just put seeds in there.
Yeah,
So we know roughly where the seeds are going to pop up.
all right.
So we know what are seeds and what are weeds.
That is important.
That is important, or some other random plant that's popped up.
Okay, so I'm going to get you to do some planting, Kaylene.
Okay.
And we're going to separate these seedlings and put them into the ground. Remember 5 centimetre spacing, and we've got our rows set up about 25 centimetres apart. So let's bring that in. There we go. And then we'll plan that out. That's it. We've got some spring onions growing over there, so they're actually pretty ready to harvest, so we can
Yes,
take those into
well
the
and truly.
kitchen. So we might do that. So let's pull the
Pull them
spring
out.
onions out. Yeah.
Cool.
There we go. I made the mistake the other day of thinking that a spring onion, because it's smaller and like they use it in French dishes, was kind of, I don't know, pleasant to eat raw. I don't know where I got that in my mind, but I took a nice bite of the spring onion.
It's very bitey.
I just want to let you know they're not pleasant to eat raw at all. We might get the power planter and just dig over that bit
Yeah.
there, please. Get that ready. So squeezing on our knees
space here. There's
down
so
here.
much stuff down here.
Yeah, we've got a lot.
Do you want to sprinkle some compost?
That's all right. You're mixing it in. Very good.
Lots of worms. Love it.
Lots of worms. All right. So just smooth that out again. Excellent.
We can squeeze one more?
We can go in more, I think, Kay, because they
Whoops,
they don't have very big leaves, onions.
Well, if we move it that way.
So it's not like they're going to be spreading out to the side. Whereas something like broccoli is huge, really. I've shown you in the previous videos in episode 3 how big broccoli and cabbage and everything is. So you plant, I think, 6 plants to one bed for those things, whereas here we're going to be planting 50 plants to half a bed.
I'm just gently breaking them up because there's quite a few in here. I'm gonna be naughty and take my gloves off.
Yeah, you should take your gloves off, I think, for this step.
I like to be able to feel stuff. And because they're tiny, so if you can see that, that's how tiny it is.
Very good. So we're going to break them apart and very gently.
Basically, I just stick my finger in long enough so the roots are not getting too squashed, and then you just push it in.
So
Done.
We'll do that again. Now we're going to go 5 centimeters, another one here, another one here.
Yeah.
All right.
Where are we?
There we go. Just flip your hand around, Kaylene, so the camera can see.
We'll do one more.
So use your left hand.
Left hand, that's no good.
Okay. So they're pretty delicate when they're at this stage because they're only small, but they are going to grow into full-size onions. Each one of these plants will grow 1 onion.
Yep.
Okay. So that's why you need to plant so many of them.
Yes.
Whereas, you know, a broccoli plant will generally be producing more broccoli, so more flowers, and you cut some off and then you'll grow more and so on.
I'm not going to be able to reach all the way over there. Can you reach over
That's
there
it.
with
I'll
your
do
long
those
arms?
ones. Yep.
Do you want me to keep going with all these ones?
Yeah, keep going. We'll do a bit more. It's actually quite a relaxing job doing
It
this.
is.
It's quite peaceful.
Oop, I'm being delicate.
Yeah. This is probably not my best angle at the moment.
Why?
You know,
Your
the
bald
Yeah,
head.
there's a bit of, might be a bit of reflection,
It's all right.
a bit of glare in the camera.
It's getting some sun today.
Yeah.
Brian's most of the time in the office, unfortunately, which he does enjoy being outside, so he's getting some vitamin D today. You can reach the other ones and I'll keep going this side. We're not going to have enough room, Brian.
Now, the more care that you take with putting these in, the better the result's going to be.
Yeah.
Because they're little babies. All right, we're going well.
Going well, but we're going to run out of room.
That's okay. We've got another bed over there that we've got
Okay,
leeks
okay.
in that we're going to add some onion to
Okay.
as well.
Great.
All right. So we might pause there
Okay.
because it's taking up a bit of time to do that, and we'll keep going through and teaching some more things. So
Okay,
now
I'll
we've
just
got to
finish. You keep talking.
protect these guys. And there's going to be a few things we need to do to protect them. We've got to protect them from the sunshine and the wind if it's too strong. We've got to protect them from pests, although
Onions don't get much.
onions don't get much with pests because they're a bit bitter, I assume, for snails and slugs and things. We don't want them to dry out as well. So the way we would do it is, because we've got our system with the timber beds and the holes that are in the corners for the poles to go up, is that we put a shade cloth cover. So if you just pan the camera over there, you can see there's a bed with a shade cloth temporary fix over there. So those plants under there I'm protecting from sun and wind, just enough for them to be established. In fact, they're actually ready for the shade cloth to come up. So we're going to do the same thing on this bed.
Okay.
But if you don't have this kind of setup, the simple way to do it is to put some hessian over the top. So we're just going to use some bits of wire.
Okay.
And those of you who are old enough, you probably remember seeing like the council gardens, like when they used to put annuals in and really careful.
Well, I haven't done this one yet.
Presentation.
So just do that one for now.
Okay.
So I haven't planted the other
All
ones
right.
yet.
And they used to put these wire hoops there to stop the kids from running on the flowers and things in the gardens. Remember
Good
those
idea.
days before they started planting lamandra everywhere? I really don't like lamandra.
Yeah. But that's all right. If you love it, it's
I'm
okay.
sorry if you're a native lover and you love lamandra. I know a good counsellor.
They're handy for spots where you don't want anybody to walk because they're spiky and hard.
Yes, where nothing else grows and you don't want humans to go to, put lamandra.
Yeah.
So we're just going to drape the hessian over the top, and probably for the first 3 or 4 days I would leave the hessian on.
Maybe take it off to water.
Yeah, take it off to water.
And then just pop it back down again.
And then fold your hessian up and put it back in the cupboard.
Would you
and
peg
use
it
again.
down?
Yeah, you could peg it down if you're in a
case the
windy
wind,
spot. Yeah, I'd probably peg it down. But a very simple way of just protecting them. If you've got shade cloth, you could do it with shade cloth, I guess, as well. It's just a bit stiffer to do that. But you don't want the actual cloth to be touching the plants.
Yeah.
All right. I want to talk about frost and things as well, frost protection, because we're coming into winter time now. We're in Sydney, temperate zone, so it's not too cold here, but it still gets chilly. We still get frosts. And so what are the options? Now, some vegetables actually love frost, and they would be quite happy to have frost on them, and some say that actually sweetens the flavour. So vegetables generally with thicker leaves, like your cauliflower and your kale and cabbage and broccoli, they love frost. Whereas things with thin leaves, like lettuce, the actual cells in the lettuce freeze when the frost happens.
Yes, like they do when they're in the fridge.
That's
you put
right.
them in the back of the fridge and they...
Yeah, they stick to the back of the fridge and they go yucky, yeah. So that's what happens with a frost. So you've got to protect that cell structure. So the way to do that is to cover it over. Now you could use some hessian, you could use some frost net, you could just use an old sheet, any of those things if you've got predicted very cold weather overnight and there's going to be a frost, just drape that over the top to protect them. But there's another thing you can use as well, and that's called a cloche, a French word. Kaylene
Probably
said
not saying it right at all, so sorry to any French people.
Kaylene said to me, Brian, do not try and pronounce it in French because...
We tried to learn French once and we failed miserable. Brian did okay, I failed.
So a cloche, C-L-O-C-H-E, is a French word for bell, and that's the bell shape. Now, you would have seen in like giftware shops, so kind of higher end giftware shops, these glass domes that look like this, but they're made of glass. And they're quite heavy. They look very beautiful, and people often use them to decorate ornaments in their house. Well, they actually come from this idea. So originally these were made out of glass, and the purpose of them was to grow seedlings in cold areas. So in France, where it gets much colder than Australia, they would put these cloches.
We'll just call them cloches.
Cloches. I think it's cloches. They put the cloche over the top, and that protects the seedling. So if you live in a cold area and you want to grow lettuce, this is your solution. Or to get the glass fancy ones as well.
Got one little lettuce behind.
Yeah, we can put that over the top. And so that just protects the lettuce and stops it from freezing from the frost. So that's the way to do that. The other advantage is it stops the snails from getting to the lettuce as well. We've got them on the Aussie Gardener website, and you just put the pegs in to hold it down. If it's getting too humid in there, you open the vents just like the propagator here to let some of the moisture and the heat out. They don't cost too much, so just get enough to protect all of your lettuces and things. So that's one solution. Another solution is if you use a drink container, like a soft drink bottle, and you just cut it in half, take the lid off one end and so on, like this, and then you put that over the top of your seedlings like this, just push into the soil, and you do this. Now, Onions won't need this.
No.
They'll be fine. But if you've got something else that might need protecting, maybe the beetroots when you're planting those, the kale, they would probably benefit from it as well, is you put these little kind of homemade hothouses.
But you do need to be careful with that, because like that one's got air.
Yeah.
Because you've still got to water them.
Yes.
So you'd have to kind of take them off to water.
Yeah.
Unless, yeah.
So this is kind of like a homemade version of the bell cloche, but it's a small size. So you couldn't grow a lettuce in there, but you could start a seedling off in there. So it'd be good for that. But if you wanted to protect the whole lettuce, go for that one there. What else was I going to say in this segment? Mulch. We should look at mulch.
Yes.
Okay.
Mulch is behind us.
So there's all different types of mulches out there. So you've got on your garden, you would put wood chip mulch, which is usually from like tree surgeons when they're cutting down trees and they put it through the big chipper.
Because it lasts longer.
And it lasts longer. Don't put that on your veggie patch because it will kind of contaminate your soil with wood chips, which don't really break down for a long time. And we only want things in the soil that are nice and soft. So the types of mulch we want to use on vegetables is going to be either something like this. This is sugarcane mulch, which is a byproduct, a waste product of the sugar industry. You can use that, or you could use lucerne hay mulch or straw. Now, what's the difference between all of them is sugarcane mulch, I do like, it's a good product, but it has one drawback, is that when it's on the soil, in order for it to start breaking down, it has to suck nitrogen out of the soil. And so we found that when we did a little test, is that we put lucerne mulch on half of a bed, we put sugarcane mulch on the other half of the bed. The plants that were growing in the sugarcane mulch ended up fading green. So their green started fading, which indicates there was a nitrogen drawdown. And so when you're...
Yeah, easily be fixed.
Easily be fixed. The way that you solve that is you just put some nitrogen pellets, like dynamic lifter pellets or something like that, or nitrosol, underneath the sugarcane mulch, and the sugarcane mulch will suck that nitrogen rather than taking it out of the soil. Okay.
But for our root vegetables,
root vegetables doesn't matter. No. So for root vegetables, it's probably a benefit to actually adding the sugarcane mulch because it's going to draw some of the nitrogen out, which is a good thing. So we gently put this on.
Making sure you don't bury the leaves. So.
Yep.
If you, yeah.
So what I would probably do is put some on like this, and then come back in probably 3 or 4 days and put some more on as the plants start to get a bit stronger.
More established.
Because generally we want to have, you know, a good 5 centimeters thick of mulch to insulate the soil, keep the moisture in, protect the plants, keep the weeds down as well. So that's your sugarcane mulch. Lucerne hay, some of you in country areas will be able to get access to hay bales. So straw is great for strawberries, hence why they're called strawberries, because the berries sit on the straw and they're not in contact with the soil, which means that they don't rot. Lucerne hay usually has the leaves on it and it adds nitrogen to the soil, so that's really good for the veggie patch as well.
Yep.
Okay. So a couple of tips for that. So we're going to now jump over to putting some peas in one of our beds. So we're going to swap spots for doing that. So we'll head over and set that up.
Alrighty.
All right, so Kaylene, just pass me over the propagator because one of the things we've got to do is get these guys ready for the big wide world. And you'll notice when you have the lid on, so pass me the lid. When you have the lid on, often this will get a lot of condensation inside of it, so all clouded around the edge and water drips and things as well. So if you're finding that, you open the vents at the top to let the heat out and some of the moisture out. Now when the plants are getting a bit bigger, now our ones are starting to get to that stage, what I'd probably do is start leaving the lid off for maybe a couple of hours a day to start off, and then half a day, and then eventually a full day, and just leaving the lid back on at night time, so you're hardening them up.
Making sure you're keeping the soil moist. I've seen a few people posting pictures and their soil is dry. needs to be moist
Yeah,
for the
so
seeds to germinate.
I saw someone using a mister to water their seeds, so don't do that. The mister is going to just wet the foliage. It doesn't really do anything particularly for the soil, so you need to actually be using, what we're using is the bottle top sprinklers. That's a really good, simple idea, or otherwise a very gentle hose or watering can to keep that soil moist. You don't want it waterlogged, you just want it to look dark. So dark and moist looking is the way. So if it's starting to look light, that means you need to water it.
Yeah.
And then that's going to harden them up, ready to go out into our beds.
Because they need sunlight too. A lot of you, I've noticed, have been keeping it indoors, and it's.
I think that was actually my fault.
Was it?
I think in video 1 I
say that?
I said you could put them in a sunny spot indoors, and.
But sunny spots indoors aren't usually that sunny.
No, so I was imagining like a very, very sunny spot.
Yeah.
So you've got to adjust this. So
Yes.
in winter we have less
light.
sun.
Yeah.
The angle of the sun is different. Whereas in summer it's really hot, and so having it at a sunny spot indoors is probably quite appropriate in summer, or in a shady spot in the garden. Whereas in winter you need probably all the sun that you can get. You've got to also look at that depending on where you are in Australia.
You adjust it, yeah. So it's all about keeping the soil moist and them getting sunlight.
Yeah.
So they need the sunlight and the soil moist.
Very good. So now what we're going to be doing, I'll get you to put that over there, is we're going to be planting some peas out. Now, peas grow quite fast, so if you've got your peas in your seed tray and they're already up at this size, they're ready to plant out. So that's pretty exciting. So you're going to start growing some lovely fresh peas, and just the joy of being able to pick peas straight off the vine and crunch them. You'll probably have a tendency to eat them before they actually make it to the kitchen as well, which is really, really nice and fresh. So we're going to need this bed here because we're practicing crop rotation.
Yeah.
This bed has the remnants of some turnips that have been growing. So we'll pull those out because we're finished with the turnips.
We're not huge. We've discovered we're not huge
That one's
fans
not very big, but
of turnips.
So if anybody, look, we had turnips. I thought, let's put turnips in our baked dinner last night. And I cut the turnips up and put some lovely marinade. I was expecting it to be delicious.
Some potato as well, so you couldn't tell the difference between the turnip and potato until you tasted it.
And I have to say it was a bit of a letdown. It was actually pretty bad. So if anyone knows some good recipes on how to cook turnips so they taste good, please let us know, because last night was a bit of a failure. All right, so we're going to put those to the side. We might hear some recipes and we might be able to eat those.
Yeah,
of course, put all the leaves into the compost bin. Yep. And Kaylene, if you can just dig that over with the power planter. Very good. So it is easy to pull the weeds out once you've gone over it with the power planter as well.
Yep.
Get all the roots and everything out as well. And then just give it a light smoothing out. Now, peas and beans are a bit of a magical crop because they're one of the few vegetables that actually add nitrogen into the soil. On their roots, of all things. So they can actually be in group 1 of our crop rotation. So because we've grown root vegetables here before, now we're going back to group 1 because root vegetables is group 4, back to group 1, which is going to be adding nitrogen to the soil, and we're going to actually grow a crop at the same time as adding nitrogen, which is like a bonus. So I made these frames out of some Murbo timber a little while back, so we've probably had these for a year at least.
Yep.
And this is what we're going to use to grow our peas on. And so we'll just pull that out. I'll tell you what we didn't do, we didn't add the compost in. So let's move this out of the way and do it properly.
Did you bring the compost? Oh,
yeah,
I didn't see it, I thought you didn't have it. So.
There we go.
Right, okay.
She's always jumping ahead, I don't know.
Sorry.
Always jumping ahead. So we're going to add our compost in there.
You can mix it in.
Very good, and we'll mix it in. Can you get another bucket of compost?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And again, you can use a fork or a spade to mix this in, but it's heaps easier with a power planter. That's just adding some fresh organic
Put
matter
it there or there?
to the soil. Very good. So we might just set the frame up here, Kay.
I want it level though.
Now you could make up something like this yourself and do it as a bit of a project. These are just some Merbo strips that I got from Bunnings, and then used treated pine screws, I think, or galvanized screws to put it together. And then I've added some wire pieces in the middle for the vine to grow on as well. But you could also use one of the frames, like a little trellis or something like that, make your own version.
Chicken wire, you can
Yeah.
He was just being fancy. And it was a nice little project for him to do.
Just a little tip, if you're going to make up more than one of them, I recommend making up a template. That's what I did, because each of the sides of it is the same shape and then joined together. And so it was much easier creating a template on a piece of board, so that you could line things up and screw it all together to do multiples of them.
Break up the other ones.
So I'm just gently pulling these apart, trying to maintain as much soil on them as I can, and also the roots there. And then I'm going to add these around the frame.
Around the other side.
Now I'll add some into the middle because we've got enough seedlings there to do that.
Put one in that corner.
Yep. So if you've got your seedlings growing and you haven't got a trellis yet, you can still put your plants in now, and then add the trellis later as you build it or you purchase one. And then to give them some extra love, we're going to give them a solution of Amgrow plant starter.
Yeah. So you only need 20 mils of this to go in a 9 litre can. So apparently the cap is 45 mils, so a little less than half of the cap. Oops, too much.
So it's a real concentrate, so make sure you don't put too much in.
And then I might...
I'll just give it a swirl with my hand.
Usually I put the...
Give it a swirl with my hand.
Best, I usually just put this in first and then put the hose in to mix it all up.
And what this is doing is it's like a seaweed tonic that's helping them go through the transplant shock of going from the punnet into the new spot.
Well, it's got a few things in it. So
yeah.
Increases root development, reduces transplant shock, helps plants establish quickly and promotes additional root development.
And when you're watering, if you find that you end up exposing them a bit too much, just plant them in a little bit deeper. There we go, and we'll use the rest of that watering can on some other ones we're going to be planting.
Okay.
So that's as hard as it is, really. it's a pretty simple job. It's actually a very pleasant job.
Yeah.
Once you've got your bed set up and you've got some reasonable soil in there and you're adding compost, if you don't have your compost bins running yet like we do, that's okay. You can buy compost in bags. Sometimes you can also buy it from your soil yards as a bulk lot. Generally the stuff I find in bags is mainly kind of very fine wood chip that's been broken down. It's not like made from vegetables and things. So you do want to start growing your own or making your own compost over time.
Yeah, for sure.
But they're the main things I wanted to cover in today's video. Is there anything else that you can think
I
of?
don't think so. Well, the only other thing is you might want to put a snail trap.
A snail trap's a good idea.
For your
and
babies.
mulch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So use the snail beer trap, or put beer or yeast in
Which
and
we
water into
talked
that.
about, I think, in episode
episode
3.
three covers that as well.
Yep.
So look, everyone's doing really well. We're seeing so many good photos.
Yes.
Great projects happening. It's just amazing that you know, this whole COVID thing has brought about a positive change in people wanting to actually grow
Get
their
into
own
garden.
food.
It's awesome.
You know, it's an honour for us to just be a part of that and to help you guys do that. So keep spreading the word. Let your friends know about it. They can join in and start at episode 1 and work through the series. We are going to be doing something different as well, is that we're going to be producing videos about each plant that we grow. So very specific videos. So these series of videos have been kind of general, how to set it up, how to grow, how to plant, how to grow seeds. We're going to start releasing videos where we say, this is how you grow sweet potato.
Okay.
This is how you grow kale. And so it's going to be a dedicated video you'll access through the website for members, and so that'll make it easier. And you can go on that any time of the year and be able to go, well, now I'm planting kale, or when do I harvest it, and keep referring to those videos. One last thing, and I said in the last video, if you can help us out by making your purchases through the Aussie Gardener store, that's how we earn our income. Our family and the other families that we employ as well. So I noticed that a lot of you are kind of going off and you know, buying things at other places, and it'd just be really helpful for us if you could make use of our store. All of our prices you'll find are very competitive, if not cheaper than the other places if you're a member, and we look after you with good sales and service as well. Got a bit of soil on there, that's a good sign that we have done some gardening.
Real gardener.
Very good. So that's all for this episode. Thanks for joining us. We've got a little bit of an autumn wind. It's absolutely beautiful. Gorgeous time of year.
Day.
Love it. And keep asking your questions in the group and joining in. Fantastic.
See ya.
See you later.